Leon Charney Report. And now, here is your host, Leon Charney.
Welcome to another Leon Charney Report. And what a week it was, and we thought we'd bring you up to date. You've heard enough about Holyfield and how his ear was bitten off by Mike Tyson and what's going on in the fighting business. Who else to bring on but Guy LeBow. And I'm going to read his introduction, which I've not done in 8 years because it's so exceptional. And Guy was, with the exception of Don Dunphy, has broadcast more fights than any other sports announcer in the country. He has been sports director and editor of NBC, ABC, WPIX TV, and has broadcast every kind of sport. He wrote and narrated the landmark computerized boxing championship, which was syndicated by all around the world. Guy LeBow is a member of the Hall of Fame. I don't read introductions, you know that from before, but I think Guy deserves it. You're also in the Jewish Hall of Fame, aren't you?
Yes,
in Washington.
I am, yeah.
That's not on here.
And I'm on the Catholic Hall of Fame, but I've resisted a couple of others so far until they become qualified religions.
So what was your name, Leibowitz?
No, LeBow.
LeBow?
Yeah.
And what was your father's name?
LeBow.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you Jewish?
I am Jewish, yes.
You're proud of it?
Very proud of it.
Name me 5 great Jewish fighters.
Benny, this is, remember, ad lib now. Okay. I broadcast with a couple of them, Barney Ross.
Great.
And Benny Leonard, a fighter named Jacobs. For the moment, I can't think of the others, but I'm sure. Max Bayer was not Jewish, so don't.
He was German, wasn't he?
He was German, Teutonic, and but yes, that's right. There are more than 5, I assure you, but I can't remember them.
All right, you're excused. We have another great fighter on later. He's called Al Schwimmer. He's one of the founding heroes of Israel.
I defer to him, yes.
You defer to him? Maybe he'll come up with another boxer. We give him a few minutes to find another one. Guy, in all your years in sports, and you've had many, you believe an ear would be bitten off by a fighter?
No, never. I have personally broadcast some of the most ferocious fights. Zale and Graziano, Robinson and Graziano, Muhammad Ali in 2 or 3 of his heavyweight championships, Dick Tiger and Nardiello for the middleweight championship when there was actually extremely bad blood between them. In fact, Nardiello was such an emotional person that on one occasion prior to his fight, we were watching the Sonny Liston-Cassius Clay fight. And when Sonny Liston dropped down and out in the first round, very early in the first round, he kicked our set in. He was so emotional about people not finishing a fight. Now, you make of that whatever you want to.
In my old days, when I used to represent personalities, Joe Louis was a client of mine. And you probably remember when he collapsed in the car and we took him to downtown hospital.
Yeah.
And they thought he had a heart attack. It was not a heart attack. In any case, I took Joe Louis to the Marine Midland Bank at 140 Broadway. I just walked in with him. The whole place stood up. If I took the defense minister or the prime minister of Israel in that place, they'd all be seated. Believe me, no one gets that excited. Bill Clinton came in there, a lot of people would rise, not the same as Joe Louis. And when Joe was injured, or when he had this heart attack, Richard Nixon called me, the president. And he said, "What can I do for Joe?" I said, "You could take away his tax liens. Remember his tax liens?"
Right.
And I said, and he
constantly
did it.
In trouble with
and
that.
He did it. He took it away.
Yes,
and poor Joe wound up in Caesar's Palace as a greeter.
I have a tale about Joe Louis, which to me is the most compassionate moment I've ever witnessed. I was seeing Joe's last fight with Rocky Marciano in Madison Square Garden, and my companion was Gus Lesnovich, the great light heavyweight, possibly one of the 2 best of all time. And when it was over, and Joe was down on the ground, and they were then reviving him, ready to walk him, I looked, and Gus Lesnovich was crying. This big, brawny, bull of a man, crying. I said, "Let's go to the dressing room, Gus. You're going to want to talk to Joe Louis." When we got to the dressing room, there was a scene there I shall never forget. Joe was sitting around in his traditional white robe, covering his head on the trainer's table. And there was a room maybe of about 50 various people, hangers-on, of course, a few, but otherwise.
In French, we call them schleppers.
Schleppers, but otherwise, some of the top writers, thinkers, and broadcasters in the business, they were sobbing. They were crying, some convulsively,
Really?
and I had this big light heavyweight crying. So we approached Joe, and Leslie said, I'm terribly sad about this, Joe. And Joe said, by the way, this is the first thing he said to him, how is your wife? I heard she was very ill. When he said that, it touched Lestovich even more, and tears fell like in Niagara Falls. It was
my point,
extraordinary.
Yeah, well, my point is he was a gentleman. He was beloved as an American. We know about the great Schmeling fight. He stood up, carried the American flag.
Right.
I mean, he was representative of something. Today, you see a gorilla in the ring, and he's biting the ear off. What's happening?
Since
in
I
boxing?
was old enough to see fights, and especially old enough to do fights, understand the fighting business,
Right.
the heavyweight champion of the world has always been presented and projected forth as the American. Whatever his color, whatever his background,
right.
he just immediately established himself as something that people would listen to and follow.
Right.
We haven't had anybody like that for quite a number of years, maybe since the end of Joe Louis's reign.
But people like Muhammad Ali today, I mean, he was honored at the Olympics.
Yes, he was.
And I think he was given a medal by Clinton. I mean, he was a draft dodger, I think, or something happened with him in the draft when he was Cassius Clay. But then he reverted, or he converted.
Well, I hesitate to call that illegal war the subject for draft dodging conversation. But he did say that he was not going to go, and the country couldn't do anything
so
about
did Bill
it for
Clinton,
some reason.
right? So did Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
So did Bill Clinton.
Well,
He wasn't a fighter.
he wasn't a fighter. He came up a different route.
Right.
He was a dissident, as I was. I must tell you, I was a dissident, and I spent a couple of years blackballed and not being able to follow my craft because I didn't believe in the Vietnamese War. Won the second. I was a good friend of Wayne Morse of Oregon.
Senator Wayne Morse of
Yes,
Oregon.
indeed.
Wow,
Right.
I haven't heard that name in a long
Yeah.
time.
Yes, indeed.
Well, my senator, the one I work for, Senator Vance Hartke, made the first statement against the war. And let's say Lyndon Johnson did invite him to Saturday night parties, you know?
He did or did not?
He did not. No,
Of course
he did not. Lyndon Johnson
Yeah.
messed that up. But
Now, there was one other person beside Morse. Wasn't he the Hawaiian senator who...
Inouye,
Yeah, in a way.
he's still there, I think.
Yeah, he is still there. He fought his
Al
hard...
Schwimmer can tell you that. He checks up on these guys.
Yeah.
If they give money to Israel, Schwimmer's there.
Yeah.
Tell me, though, what should happen? What's the fine that what's his name, Tyson have received?
Well, I'm going to be tough on him, as some of my
Suspend
comrades
him?
are. No. Throw him
life?
out of boxing for life.
For life.
For life. For life.
You think he'll do that? They will do that? No, it's a commission.
No, because there's too much money involved, and they will backtread, they will backwater, and they won't do what they're supposed to do. Look, this, as a matter of fact, what happened with Tyson and with Holyfield seems to me to be the apex of what's been happening in other sports. Hockey, I'm regarded as a hockey expert in the world. I was the first American to write a book on the game, although I never skated in my life. And I've done many of the Stanley Cup championships, and I know what the game is all about. I have taught the game for Madison Square Garden. What they did and what they are doing to the game of ice hockey is just as defiling as the business going on in boxing. They beat each other over the head. They do every underhanded
even
thing they can.
basketball.
In basketball,
Rodman's crazy.
under the basket, it is vile. It is foul under the basket. And they're doing things in baseball too. You know, knocking a catcher over if he's in
So
front
what
of
is it, the animal instinct in all of us that likes to see this brutality?
I'm not going to let writers who like to philosophize about that bunk set a standard for me. The people who engage in that are bums and they don't belong in our society. And hopefully, and I imagine, they're just a small minority of people who are normal in their reaction and responses.
Have you met Tyson? Do you know him?
No, I've never met Tyson.
How about Holyfield?
I have met Holyfield.
He's a gentleman?
Yes, he is a gentleman. He's going to be a minister when he retires from... As a matter of
It's
fact,
a
I
good
think
combination. A boxing minister
Well, it did a
belts
lot-
out the pulpit. I mean, from the pulpit. He can belt them all out.
a lot of athletes have gone into the ministry. A
That's
lot.
right. The what's his name? The guy who was hanging around O.J. Simpson.
Oh,
Rosie,
yeah,
Rosie Greer.
Rosie Greer.
He's a minister.
Quebec of the Yankees has become a member.
Any rabbis?
No.
We can't get a
because-
rabbi.
Oh, we could
Who's
get a
the only Jewish basketball player in the NBA today?
Gee, that would be hard for me.
Dolph Shay's son.
You see, you're right.
See that?
Yeah.
Anyway, boxing, the promoters, a guy like Don King, how much does he take out of a fight like...
Much too much.
Really?
Much too much. I
You
think
must know King. Have
I
you
do
met him?
know King, yeah.
What do you think? But be careful, we're on television.
I
now.
know we're on television, and he's not responsible for what Tyson did in the ring. People have said, and I read Sidney Zion today, a very capable
He's on the show 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and knows his sports, and he indicated, I don't know whether he actually said, but he indicated that he thought that Tyson threw the fight and that his handlers knew that. And I say, the fact that you say his handlers knew it is absolutely out of the question. They would never allow, throwing fights is not a new thing, and the public ought to realize that they're,
I'm saying, I agree with you.
yeah, it's not a
Shaving
new thing.
games in basketball.
Exactly, it exists. I hope to a very minimal.
But people, I think, did you see the fight on PTV?
Yes.
All right. Don't you think he was being beaten, and that's why he started to get, like, he became a lunatic in the ring?
Well, Angelo Dundee is one of the most honored men in the business, and he knows it as well as anybody. He's been the manager, I don't know of record, but he's been the manager and trainer for Muhammad Ali all of his career.
Right.
Has done a wonderful job with him. Angelo said that he found that fighters, and I agree with it, are the most complicated people, certainly the most complicated athletes they are. It is not exactly normal to become somebody who knows you're going to earn a day's business today by flattening somebody's nose or blackening their eyes or breaking a couple of bones. It just isn't natural.
Right.
I think people, I'm sure you know people who said that even if my life was at stake, I couldn't shoot somebody. I may be one of them. You may be another of them. He is.
I don't know. When I went to see Arafat, he had a gun. Can't tell.
You're right. You can't.
But shouldn't maybe boxing be banned altogether? Isn't it such a brutal sport? Or you think all sports are so brutal today?
All sports are brutal today. And would I ban boxing? Yes, I would. I would ban boxing. Yeah, I would. And I would ban Tyson for life. For life. Not because I want to particularly come down hard on him, but he did the extraordinary thing. He was a cannibal in the ring. And, you know, even if I bought all this business about that he wasn't prepared for a great emotional response, that he knew he was going to lose the fight, he was further exasperated and frustrated when Holyfield was beating him, and he knew that he was being beaten. Fighters know that as they go on. And he was going to probably lose badly, maybe by a majority decision. To do that takes a special kind of person. Think of it for a minute.
Of course.
You're going to bite off a piece of ear of somebody, and if we don't stop now, make it a condition that never is allowed to arise again. What if somebody had bitten off somebody else's tongue?
There's something tied.
Or nose, or eyes.
I agree with you, but there's something tied in here to the fact that all these sporting events have world distribution, and television gives them gives enormous payday to all these people.
Yeah.
And all these people try to become stars because they're showing themselves to the world. Dennis Rodman wears tricolor hair. Some other guy in hockey knocks the hell out of somebody else. Everybody's trying to make a name for himself.
You're
and
right.
one of the ways they make a name is by being vicious.
It's like everything else. It begins with the allowing by the producer to have this kind of thing. I think there was a time when producers or matchmakers and promoters felt a certain conscience, a certain thing about what was right and what was workable, what was real and what is not. And we don't have that today. That is why we have so many bad motion pictures, bad theater, obscene entertainment. Nobody says, hey, that's enough. We're not going to go that far. It begins with them, not the actors and nobody else. It begins with the promoters.
So we really need a valuation of value system in this country.
You bet we do, and quick.
Otherwise, what happens?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm sure some poet understands or some psychic understands what might happen. But I think we'll have the kind of life where every day, no matter how much we earn, how much we own, will be a day of, I wonder what's going to happen.
Hedonism.
Will I make it home? Yeah. Will I make it home? Right now, for example, if you drive a car and I go everywhere by my automobile, I say a prayer of thanks when I arrive at my house.
Really?
Because the the people that are driving are so mad, so angry, so exasperated, so unconscious of the rights of somebody else to be on the same road as they are.
Well, the Orthodox Jews who watch my show will send you a prayer. There's a prayer in Hebrew called Tfilat HaDerech, which means the prayer for voyages. So I'm sure you'll get a few in here if you're praying. And if you're that nervous, the society is, it's in trouble. We know that.
Yeah.
But I hope some people are working on it. If not, then we're in trouble. We'll have to move to Israel and face Bibi Netanyahu, which is who knows what,
I had always thought Israel might be the final place, or Canada might be the final places I might have to go if things get too rough in the United States.
But there's a man here called Al Schwimmer who's going to agree with you, and he's an expatriate American.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, Guy, because I know you're going to get out of here, tell me the 3 greatest boxers in this century. And they don't have to be Jewish.
Well, actually, the first great heavyweight whose name escapes me at the most and was maybe one of the greatest fighters of several centuries is the man who started it all. He was an English Jew, and you'll forgive me, I cannot remember his
Really?
name.
If you write in to us, we promise to tell you who it is.
Yes, I'll get the name to you, and next week you can let it out for everybody. But I think most people who are historians will know who I'm talking about.
A Jewish fighter, American?
No, he was an Englishman.
Englishman.
Jewish Englishman.
Really?
And possibly one of the
Okay,
greatest.
after him?
He started after him, I would say that I can't name 3 because there are more than 3, but I would say that Jack Dempsey was one of the greatest fighters of all time, and alongside of him, his ultimate rival, Gene Tunney, because he could box as well as he could hit. I would pick Muhammad Ali because nobody was better on all fronts, defense, offense, his movements, his feet. He was beautiful to watch. And the man who many people regard as the best of all time, and my computer championships indicated that, was Rocky Marciano.
Is that right?
Yes. And the reason for that was, as Muhammad Ali himself explained to me when I asked him, Muhammad, would Marciano have really beaten you, the computer notwithstanding? He said yes, because he fights from a very low position. I would have to hit him downward, and when you fight downward or hit downward, you have no real propulsion, and you have no real power.
Guy,
It's
thanks.
a pleasure
to come.
You're looking younger. I hope I am too.
It's the vitamins. And I work out a little bit to do boxing on the side. We'll come back after a commercial to talk about Al Schwimmer, his first interview in 50 years. He hasn't talked about it. Great Israeli, great American. Be right back. We're back. We're here with Al Schwimmer. We boxed out Holyfield and Tyson. We banned boxing with Guy LeBow, and now we're going to recreate Israel, because Israel, according to Al Schwimmer, who is really a hero of Israel, needs to change its direction. Al, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
A lot of people don't remember how great you were. In 1948, it was pretty tough to bring arms into Israel, wasn't it, Al?
Almost impossible.
Who was here from the Israeli government? Teddy Kollek?
Teddy Kollek and a few others before him.
And what was it? There was an embargo on
There was a total embargo on the Middle East. Of course, that didn't affect the Arab countries because they had their arms from British mainly. But we had nothing, and nobody would give us anything or sell us anything. So the embargo really made it very difficult for us.
All right, you were in the Second World War. You were a
Yes.
flight engineer.
Yes.
You flew. You bombed the Germans.
No, I didn't bomb. I was in Transport Command.
Transport Command. All right.
But I covered all the areas.
All right. And you came back to New York City. You were not born in Israel. You had no involvement.
Connecticut.
What brought you to Israel?
Well, I guess I was psychologically prepared because I was flying into Europe towards the end of the war. I was in Paris when it was liberated, and I saw the plight of the Jewish people.
You mean the camps and
Yes.
Auschwitz and
Yes.
Majdanek,
Yes,
and it touched you.
very much so.
Now, you don't have a yeshiva background or an organized Jewish background.
No,
What did your father do?
my father was a salesman
Really?
of soda in
Salesman
Bridgeport,
of soda?
Connecticut.
Really?
Yeah.
And was he a Zionist?
My family were traditional. My mother more so. She came from a small village in Hungary, And she left there in she arrived here in 1902 as a girl of 16. Her parents from that village saw to it that their children were sent out of there because they believed that the anti-Semitism there was no place for their children to grow up.
All right, so you were attached emotionally, and somebody from well, that time was a Jewish agency, I guess. There was no Israel. Somebody got in touch with you?
It was the
Haganah
that were here. And one of the first people that got in touch with me was Shlomo Shamer. His name was Rabinovich at the time. And he was here representing the Haganah, of course, informally.
They all lived at this Hotel 14,
Hotel
right?
14.
Right over to Copacabana?
Yes.
It's in all the books. That's how I know. It's not that I was there. I was too young.
That's right.
All right, so then you're famous.
After him came, after Shlomo Shamer Rabinovich, came Yehuda Razi, who was an activist. I remember when Yehuda Razi arrived in the United States. I didn't see him, but he came into the office, and he said, you know, I had an interesting experience when I arrived at the airport. What is that? Well, he says, you know, I have a Palestinian passport. That was before the creation of the state, of course. And he said, the immigration man said to me, listen, you Palestinians are welcome here, but we don't like you coming here and trying to buy arms. So he said, well, yes, but you see, we like it.
You know, it's interesting. I read a blurb today that Israeli Air Force today got the first arrival of F-15/1s. I-1? 15I. That's the fastest plane. Is that one of the best planes around now?
It's probably the #1 fighter airplane in its class in the world.
And you were trying to bring in 1948, I don't want to say illegally, but let's say in a Jewish way, you wanted to get to a Jewish state, and you were trying to bring in Spitfires? Anything?
No, we didn't bring fighters in the beginning because there was no way to get them from the United States to Israel.
Right.
But what we did bring in were bombers and transports, and we used the transports to bring the Me-109s in knockdown condition from Czechoslovakia to Israel. Matter of fact, that's where I first met Asa Weissman in Czechoslovakia.
Asa Weissman, who became the commander of the Air Force. He was hanging around Czechoslovakia at those days with Moti Hud, I think, wasn't he?
Yes, they were, well, Moti Hud wasn't there at that time, later.
Moti Hud was the general that is responsible for the defeat of the Egyptian army in 1967.
That's right.
Six-Day War.
Six-Day War.
All right, so you got this ammunition, no, not ammunition, you got transports. That's what you're interested in.
Yeah, we brought the C-46s over from the States illegally, brought them out with 2 front companies, one out of New Jersey and one out of Miami down through Panama.
You remember the Dulles brothers, John Foster and Alice?
Yes.
Would you say they would get an honor roll in Israel?
Hardly.
I'll tell you, how about Nelson Rockefeller?
Hardly.
You're telling the truth. We've had stories about these people. You went to trial, you were convicted.
Yes, I was.
You lost your civil rights in America, haven't you?
I what?
They took away your civil rights as an American, didn't they?
Yeah, when I returned to the United States in November, December of '49. The war was over in Israel,
right?
And I wanted to go back to the States, and there was I was a refugee from justice, and I decided to go back. And now that the war was over, face whatever I had to face.
Right.
The Jewish agency retained all the legal forces. There was myself and a few other people as well, and we went on trial in federal court in Los Angeles. Trial lasted 3.5 months.
And you were convicted, paid a fine?
Fine, was found guilty. The Jewish agency paid my fine, which was $10,000. And I was...
They didn't bargain? Jewish agency? Can't you make it cheaper?
Well, the judge wanted to send me to prison in the worst way.
Who was your judge, Al? You don't remember?
It'll come to me.
It wasn't a Goldstein.
Hardly.
All right, so it was non-Jewish judge.
But he was influenced by the tremendous outcry of the Jewish community in California because he had pretensions of maybe running for governor in California. He never did make it. But as a result, he didn't send us to prison, but he gave us the maximum fine, and in my case, removed my civil rights for life under the law.
You had a great friend who became rather famous in Las Vegas called Hank Greenspun.
Hank and I worked together very closely in this whole project.
And he was the publisher of the, was it the Sun?
Publisher of the Las Vegas Sun.
Las Vegas Sun.
Yeah. The family still has a piece of that.
All right, so you returned to Israel, and you became extraordinarily famous for building an organization called Israel Aircraft Industries.
Yeah, in 1950, Ben-Gurion came to the United States. I knew him because I was on the Air Force staff, and we had regular meetings with the Minister of Defense, and Ben-Gurion was both the minister and the Prime Minister. And he came to the United States, and he was visiting the first time as Prime Minister of the State of Israel, and he was visiting various Jewish communities, and he asked people where I was, and they told him I was in Los Angeles. So when he was in Los Angeles, he came with his entire security group to my little place. I'd set up a place in Burbank, California, because I could no longer get a job in the aircraft industries in the States, although I'm a product of those industries, worked for several different companies because I couldn't get a clearance.
You were convicted too? Is that a problem?
Yeah, I couldn't get a clearance.
Right.
So I'd set up an operation there of both flying and repair and overhaul. And Ben-Gurion came there in Burbank with everybody. Teddy was there.
Teddy Kollek.
And Shimon Peres and Itzhak
Later to
Navon.
become a great friend of yours.
No, Teddy became a great friend here in New York because he was the last man here representing the Haganah.
Right, but Shimon Peres became a lasting, lifelong friend.
Yes, and Teddy as well. Teddy is a lifelong friend. Ben-Gurion said, listen, I want you to come back to Israel and set up an aircraft industry. I said, look, I'm in business here and this and that. I don't know. No, he says, look, I'm leaving California tonight and I'm going to be in New York. I want you, for 1 week, I want you to come to New York and give me your answer, and it's got to be positive. So I came to New York in 1 week and I gave him a positive answer.
Forceful man, huh? Did you have a good working relationship with Ben-Gurion after that?
Perfect.
Really? How big did Israel Aircraft become?
22,000.
The largest industrial
employer in the state of Israel.
And they make everything from?
Well, in the business that we originally started in Israel Aircraft Industry with repair and overhaul of all kinds of airplanes, including airline types. And then we got into the manufacturing of airplanes, and then we branched off into electronics and missiles and all kinds of sophisticated systems.
A lot of private jets too. The West Wind.
Yeah.
And then what came after the West Wind? It was another model.
Well, the last one was the Levy.
Levy.
Yeah.
So Al Schwimmer, who's comes from the United States, and he lost his civil rights. By the way, President Clinton, if you're watching the show, you can grant him a pardon, and that'll take out the last 50 years. It'd be nice gesture. If we gotta do something nice for Al, and I'm sure President Clinton would like to do it. So from this show, you probably get pardoned, Al.
Well, I never applied, frankly.
I know, but I'm applying for you.
But I didn't find that it
didn't affect your life
me in any way. I've been the special advisor for technology and industry to the Prime Minister for a number of years. After I left IAI, and life has been exciting.
Well, you look like you're about 60 years old. It's been pretty...
61 and a half.
All right, Al, what brings you to America? The state of affairs in Israel, obviously. You didn't come here to get your pardon.
No. Well, I'm with a group
right.
of, I like to think, important people in Israel. And we are concerned that we are facing the most important challenge to the state of Israel since the War of Independence and the erection of this state.
And you know from where you speak, because you've been there all the time.
Been there all along.
Right.
The problem today, of course, is internal. The Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox, have reached a position of power and strength, without going into all the details, but they are there.
Is that bad for the country?
Very bad.
Why?
Because they're not prepared to accept anyone, even as a Jew, who is not as orthodox as they are. In fact, they've made public statements that were in the press in Israel. Everybody could read them, saying that for them, a secular Jew is not a Jew. Now, of course, this could be the beginning of a process of driving or creating a split between the Jews of Israel, the state of Israel, and the diaspora Jewry, the Jewry around the world. We all shudder to think of what Israel would be like without the full cooperation and support of the diaspora. Not just money and this and that, but of course that's also important.
But there are people in Israel who think you can get along without it. There are people who have written books about it.
We cannot. Most of us are not interested in a little state in the middle of a hostile environment of Jews called the State of Israel without a full diaspora Jewry. Understanding and supporting. We're all Jews together, all of us. And there are Jews in the world that have never been to Israel, but they're still a part of us. And we must retain that. That it strikes at the very basis of the country. In addition to that, we're in danger in Israel of being split between the ultra-Orthodox and the secular Jews
Do
in
you
Israel.
think there could be a civil war in Israel?
No. We won't have a civil war. We will do all of this by legal, legitimate, and democratic process. But we can do it, and we will do it.
So basically, you're supporting the idea of having a separation of state and religion.
Eventually, that's
But
what
isn't
we should
Israel
have.
and Judaism, aren't they tied into, in a sense, to a religious state? Didn't your friend Ben Gurion create a religious court system there, which takes care of marriages and divorces and births and deaths?
Look, that's all okay. There's nothing wrong with having ultra-Orthodox and having people that care to adhere to the old ways and to the strict letter of the Torah and the scriptures. Nothing wrong with that, but those that do not have a right as well. This is in a democratic society. We're not against them. We're against their trying to force their ways on all of us, which will never work.
So you say you want to create an environment where people have an option?
Yeah.
Each one has a right to fulfill exactly what he wants to do?
Exactly.
And you believe
And
that
have full support of the state in doing
You
it.
believe that's a real possibility in Israel?
Yes.
And how many people...
Well, today in Israel, 80% of the people are more or less secular Israelis.
All right, we're going to cut for a commercial break. We'll come right back and find out what is disturbing Al Schwimmer, who's been a hero of Israel, lived there for the last 50 years. It's going to be 50 years or more, and founded the greatest industry there, Israel aircraft industry, and he's a little bit upset. So we'll be right back. Don't leave us. We're back. We're talking to Al Schwimmer, who is a hero of Israel, founded Israel Aircraft Industries, and was very involved in bringing arms and planes to Israel in 1948, when old Ben Gurion said to him in 1950, get out of California, come to New York, and then go to Israel and find an industry. He came, he did, and he conquered. And now he's a little bit upset because he thinks Israel has a little bit lost its direction in terms of giving civil or human rights to everybody, and he's out to make sure that everybody gets free choice. He's not against the religious Jews. Don't write me that Al Schwimmer was against the Haredim or the religious Jews. He's not against it. All he's saying is we need understanding and tolerance. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Did I paraphrase it very well?
Yes, you did.
You think I should be on television? I stumped him, you see? All right, Al. I don't want to put tough questions to you. I don't want to make tough questions. It's not right. Bibi Netanyahu, without getting too political, and we know you're a very good friend of Shimon Peres, What's the problem? He has a 22% approval rating today.
Well, first of all, I'd like to reply to being a very good friend of Shimon Peres's. I am. We're practically lifelong friends on both in political but also very personal. But for me, Israel
You're a patriot.
Israel comes first.
Right.
First. And this government is not functioning. Without going into all of the reasons why, I think first and foremost because the leadership is not there. It's not giving direction, and the result of that is that we are suffering in all areas, political, economic.
Well, I'll give you one statistic. You don't have a finance minister now, and the market's precipitously dropped in the last 2 weeks. Are you aware of that?
Yep.
Dangerous.
I'm in touch with Israel every day.
It's very dangerous, isn't it, Al?
Yes.
All right, so you don't
Not
have
dangerous,
you
but
don't
it's
have
bad.
leadership, but you were there in the forefront, and I remember with Uriel Reichman, you want to do this change where you had a direct election of prime minister. Is that correct?
Correct.
You think that's a worthwhile endeavor today?
Well, let me ask you, rhetorically,
Go ahead.
do you find something wrong in a democratic system where a voting citizen votes for the man that he wants to represent him as prime minister?
I don't know the answer because you're a unique country. Principally, I don't find anything wrong with it, but your
Okay.
country is very, very unique.
Well, allow me to continue. As long as you
asked me.
principally don't find anything wrong with it, we'll go from there. We set this up as 3 separate bills. One was for the elections, constituency elections to the Knesset, which would break the country up into voting districts, and only citizens who come from those districts could be candidates, members
Like
of
the
parliament.
U.S. Congress.
Yeah, similar. And the second bill that we put in was the bill for direct elections of prime minister. And the third bill is the Bill of Rights. What are the rights? Because Israel does not have a written constitution.
Right.
What are the rights of a citizen? What are the rights of the state? Now, we felt that the first bill to go through should be the bill for constituency elections to the Knesset. But our partners were Likud and Labor, and they preferred the first bill to go through.
So in other words, you have a half a loaf instead of the whole cut.
Now, what do we have to do now? Some people say, oh, maybe we should repeal the direct election of prime minister, but that's going backwards and in the wrong way. The old system was frozen. It was dead on its feet, and we had to change it. Now what we've got to do is get the second bill, which is now laying in the Knesset Legislative Committee, the Law Committee of the Knesset. It's got to be brought to the floor of the Knesset, and that is the bill for constituency elections for the Knesset.
All right, let me ask you a question, Al.
That's difficult now.
All right, but let me ask you a question. Suppose you had everything in there. You had a Bill of Rights, constituency elections, and direct election of prime minister, and the prime minister was doing poorly, like he is now, and he has a 22% approval rating. And you're not going to be able to run a country with a 22% approval rating. I don't care what you tell me. Something will happen. There will be a collapse. And some party will, David Levy will stir away. Who knows what will happen over there, but something will happen.
It's inevitable.
All right. So you and I agree. It's not a rhetorical question. The question is, if you had your full bill, what would happen?
Well, today, a member of parliament, Knesset member,
Go ahead.
is appointed by his party.
Some run in primaries too, don't they? I know Ruby Rivlin ran in a primary.
Party primaries.
Party, okay.
But they are, and that's controlled, of course, by the party.
Right.
Now, the result of that is that if you have a member, well, take, I don't know, Metula, for instance.
Right.
There probably isn't one member of parliament that thinks much about Metula and represents anything that Metula may wish or want, if they do know.
It's a northern city in Israel. I just want the audience
Yeah.
to know.
But if you had in our constituency system, say 1 or 2 representatives from Methuselah, and they can be, of course, they'll be members of parties.
All right.
But they will represent Methuselah.
All right.
Now,
So Methuselah is being shortchanged, hypothetically, all right?
And
So what
that's-
happens?
now what happens is when they're in they sit in the Knesset in
Go ahead.
Jerusalem,
Right.
and the existing government says to its party members, well, on this issue we want you to vote this way or that way. The guy from Methuselah or wherever says, listen, I'm sorry, I can't vote that way
Because it hurts my
because it hurts
constituency.
my constituencies, they'll throw me the hell out. Today, if the party lays down party discipline lines and you're a member of that party in Knesset, you either vote for it or you're out.
But they can't take away your seat. They have party discipline. But
They move it down. They can take
you
away your
you
seat.
become a backbencher. But
You
you're in
become a backbencher, but
Al, you're in
you
there for-
lose your influence.
Right, okay, but you're in there for 4 years. You see, the problem with the Israeli system, and I discussed this with Yitzhak Rabin, may he rest in peace,
Yes.
is that it's a hybrid. It's not truly the executive, and it's not truly the legislative.
Well, if we had constituency elections,
Right.
then it wouldn't
So
be
you would
that
have
way.
an executive branch with the prime
Of
minister?
course, you have to see the law. I can get it for you. The proposed law.
Right.
It's a
I'd like
book.
to see it.
Yeah, I have it here.
All right,
in,
so
New
so
York.
you want to really create, like the United States
Yeah.
in a way.
Democracy.
Direct election of prime minister.
That's right. A democratic system, and with a written constitution.
Well, you know, if Bill Clinton is at a 22% approval rating, the chances are that he could probably last 4 years absent impeachment. I don't know in Israel, and it's interesting in Israel because I do think the parties like Sharansky and the Third Way, they have a constituency that they report to. The Third Way says no giving back of the Golan. They ran up on that, all right? They're going to put tremendous pressure on Kahalani, who's now the police minister. Under your system, and maybe it works, I don't know, but I think people in America want to know because everybody's interested in Israel. How do you take out, or maybe you have a prime minister that has less power?
Well, he would have less power
Maybe
if
that's
he
it.
knows his members of Knesset are not absolutely under his control, and they would not be in a constituency system.
Did you ever talk about this with Shimon Peres?
Oh yes.
And what did he say?
Well, after the unfortunate death of Rabin,
Right,
and Shimon Peres took over,
right.
we talked about the forthcoming elections, and he told me that he felt that what we've got to do is get the bill for constituency elections to the Knesset through.
And he wasn't able to do it?
No,
Obviously he wasn't.
no,
Did he try hard?
I can't tell you.
We'll cut for a commercial break. My guess is he didn't try that hard because I think Shimon Peres in his heart was against direct election of prime minister.
He voted
That
for it.
All right, but that comes from Leon Charney, not from Al Schwimmer. So when they see this tape, I don't want to blame Al Schwimmer. We'll be
Good.
right back. We're back. We're having a riveting conversation with Al Schwimmer, who's really dissecting what's going on in Israel today. And it's not pleasant, but you know what? It's not that unpleasant. Israel will survive. Don't worry tonight. You can go to your pushka and still put money there, and it'll get to Israel. You can still plant trees, do whatever you have to do, because Israel will not fall apart. What you have is a lot of people with a lot of brains who have a lot of thoughts about how Israel should be going. What we do have factually is that the Prime Minister is very weak now. He doesn't have, in my opinion, doesn't have a strategic view of where he wants to take the country, and he moves tactically. And then he has people in his government who profess to be great statesmen, like Sharansky. You know a little bit about Sharansky, don't
Yes,
you?
I do.
I worked a little bit to get him out of the gulag.
I helped a little bit.
Oh, well, I helped him too.
So did I.
All right, so we're partners in crime.
Right.
All right, tell me about how's Mr. Sharansky behaving?
Well, I think without having had any recent discussion with him, or any discussion at all, I have not had, I believe he's in a very difficult position. On the one side, of course, he's highly reluctant to leave the government, although he recognizes how poor the government is.
If he thinks it's a bad government, why is he reluctant?
Because if the government goes down,
He might lose his seat,
he might lose his.
so he's a politician.
Yes.
I thought he was a statesman.
Well, you can be a statesman and a politician,
That's all I
both,
thought.
and whichever is most appropriate at the minute is the option you exercise.
Churchill tried that.
Yeah. But the fact is that Sharatsky has a very difficult decision, and he's in a very complex position. You've got 700,000 Russians, approximately, that are in Israel today. 200,000 of them are judged by the Orthodox rabbinical as being non-Jews and must go through conversion. They've converted in the last year about 700 of them, which means it's a task without end. And they make the conversion very difficult because the applicant have to prove, and they check and
The
inspect them,
background.
that not just background. The assumption is they are not Jewish according to the halakha. But to be converted, they have to prove, they and their families, that from here on in, if they don't already lead a absolutely Orthodox lifestyle, that they will.
All right, what's wrong with that?
Well, most Russian Jews are not prepared to keep totally kasher and to learn tefillin every morning and go to the synagogue every morning, or at least every
You
weekend.
think Rabbi Lau walks around checking everybody?
They check,
Really?
yeah. They have people, special people, that check these families.
All right, what would you do with these 200,000? How would you convert them?
Well, we know very well in the present circumstances you cannot convert them. But I'd like to point out to those people that may not understand it or think that far into the past that practically all of us at one point in time were quite well mixed with non-Jewish blood.
You mean I come from a Saudi Arabian sheik?
Maybe.
I gotta get in the will.
The assumptions are that the Hebrews, the original Hebrews,
Right.
looked more like the Ammonites, very much like the Ammonites. And those of us that don't look like the Ammonites are mixed a bit. Now, this happened some time ago, of course, but I believe as far as a conversion, we should legally, the state legally has to set up an apparatus whereby these people that have come to Israel under the law of return can go through conversion with the beliefs that they have and become good citizens and good Jews of the state of Israel and of the Jewish people.
God bless you, but that's maybe we shouldn't use God here, but that's a big issue. I'm sure
It's all tied together.
that is going to be a huge, huge issue, because the Israeli rabbinate does not accept reform and conservative from the United States.
We've got to change that.
By the way, I saw in the paper that Rabbi Lau and the other chief rabbi met with the conservative and reform rabbis. I think it was the first time that they did that, so maybe there is some change. Do you know something about the Neman Commission now that the Prime Minister...
Neman Commission?
Yeah, they put together to examine this problem?
Yeah, I know they put it together, and to the best of my understanding, they've got to make some kind of a decision on the 15th of September, I believe.
But I don't agree with you on one point. I think if a guy wants to be a statesman, your friend, Asa Weitzman, when he was dissatisfied with what was going on politically, he resigned as defense minister, and you remember he was at the height of his career. Everybody
Remember very
said,
well.
Right, everybody said he was on his way to becoming prime minister had he not resigned. When he got fed up in the Knesset and he thought that things were not the way it should be, he resigned. So there are people who have some profiles of courage.
And
you came very close, by the way, to a vote of no confidence about 2 weeks ago, didn't you?
yes.
So
But
it's very tough.
we have got, it's very complicated, but we will build this organization rapidly.
And it's not political, your organization.
Not political. I mean, people of any political party can belong, but the organization itself is not political. On the contrary, we're encouraging people of Likud, Labor, and other parties to join with us.
And what's the response?
Good.
You had a rally last week in Israel, in
Yes,
Tel Aviv.
Museum Square, yeah.
How'd it go?
We got about 35 or 40,000 people there. Very enthusiastic.
Have the religious community come out and said anything about your organization?
Yes.
All right.
They
So you
recognize...
fetched that yes.
Well, I say
I
yes
know we had a
because
baby.
it was yesterday that I talked to Israel, and they told me that they had circulated a bulletin at our rally, which was a picture of a pig, a chazir,
Is that right?
with the
Payas?
payas and kippah and whatnot,
Right.
the head,
Right.
the beard, sitting on a Torah. And
Really?
Yeah.
You know, I picked.
Indicating
I don't
that
have,
this
I
was
have no
what-
notes. I have no notes.
Okay.
This was a curiosity question.
Now, may I just finish?
Sure.
They claim that we circulated this thing. Well, of course, it didn't come from us. I don't know where it came from, but certainly we wouldn't be so basically stupid as to do that kind of thing because it goes against our beliefs as well.
All right, but on Yom HaZikaron, a Memorial Day for the soldiers,
Yes.
you saw people urinating on graves of soldiers. On Israel Independence
I didn't see that, but it
you
was
read about
reported.
it. You read about it in a newspaper.
Right.
There's no reverence. People have marked up Menachem Begin's grave with graffiti. People have marked up Yitzhak Rabin's grave. The Haredi community seems to have a different idea of what respect is for the country of Israel.
Well, you know, 2 weeks ago, there was the Jewish Agency executive is in Israel
Right.
once a year, and it's now, I think they finished by now. But anyway, amongst them, the Reform Jews with their wives
They went to
visited
the wall.
the Wailing Wall,
Right, and they were desecrated.
and they were desecrated. The ultra-Orthodox came and threw not only stones, but bags of defecation at them.
When you were stealing planes in 1948, strike the word
I
steal.
didn't steal. We bought.
Strike the word steal.
It was cheaper to buy
When
them.
you were exporting without a license,
Now you're talking.
did you believe that this would come about in your wildest dreams, or you never thought about it?
I was young. I wasn't that profound. All I saw was a goal, which was to create a state.
So you're a bit disappointed.
No, I'm not disappointed. I just see there's been many accomplishments
And
in
you're
Israel
you're
over the years.
optimistic for
Many.
change.
We've made giant strides
Absolutely.
in all directions. But we have a problem, and
All
we've got to find a
All
solution.
right, let me
to
go
it.
down some names with you. National Religious Party. Would they make an accommodation with you?
I know Hammer personally, and we did make an accommodation with them on the electoral reform bill.
So you have
But
reason.
today, from what I read, they are violently opposed to any of these principles that
Okay.
we are voicing.
Shas Party.
Purely political.
Would they accommodate or work with you on this?
I doubt that any of the religious
None of the
groups-
religious parties.
I doubt it. But you see, our main thrust has to be in a position when this government, present government of Bibi Netanyahu, concludes its term, whether it does it through the normal process 3 years from now or earlier, that we have reached a position of public support that where we can come to the two parties, Labor presumably headed by Ehud Barak, who I think a lot of.
Does he believe in this concept?
I haven't discussed it with him.
All right, that's honest.
But I believe if we reach a position in the not-too-distant future to where we can assure the parties that we can bring them enough support, not just verbally, but they have to believe it, and they're skeptical and should be, that we can bring them enough support to make a government without the incorporation of the religious parties, that they'll go with us.
You won't believe it, Al. We're out of time. I got to thank you very much for coming on. We didn't have fireworks in the studio, but this show will be guaranteed to give fireworks to the community, Jewish community, non-Jewish community. Everybody's going to watch this show because Al Schwimmer knows about Israel, and he has a complaint, and he thinks Israel is still strong, but this will bring fireworks. My email will be tied up for the next 15 years, but that's what we're here to do, to show you the viewpoints of everybody. And if Haredi Rabbi wants to come on next week, you're welcome. We'll see you next week.